Thank you for listening to the Healthy Project podcast, where we get into conversations about health equity, public health, and how to create a healthier community for everyone. I'm your host, Dion Lewis, and together we'll explore innovative solutions, discuss the barriers people face in accessing quality care, and hear from leaders in the field who are making a real difference. Whether you're a healthcare professional, community advocate, or simply someone who cares about health equity, you're in the right place. Let's get started on creating change one conversation at a time. What's up, everybody? Thank you for listening to the Healthy Project podcast. I am your host, Dion Lewis. And today I have a story that is close to home for everyone who cares about public health, justice, and the future of our planet. I want to talk about an episode I did back in 2022. My guest was Marisol Gonzalez, and it was called The Health Impacts of Climate Change. And it really opened my eyes to how much environmental factors can affect our health. I'll make sure to drop the link to that episode in the description of this episode if you want to check it out. But one of the most impactful stories I learned from that episode is the story of Ella Roberta Kissi-Debrah. I'm going to tell you about her story today because it's a story that pushes us to look deeper into the relationship between climate change, air pollution, and health disparities. So sit back and let's take all this in and reflect on what we can do to make sure we never have to tell another story like Ella's again. Okay, so let's get into it. Ella Roberta Kissi-Debrah was just 9 years old when she passed away in February 2013. 9 years old. That's only third grade. But what's most heartbreaking isn't just that she passed away so young, it's the reason why she passed away. Ella lived in Lewisham, southeast London, not far from one of the busiest and most polluted roads in the UK, the South Circular Road. Now imagine growing up somewhere where the air you breathe every day is making you sick, and not in an obvious way where you know what's happening, more in a slow, invisible way. That was Ella's life. She suffered from severe asthma, and from 2010 to 2013, she was admitted to the hospital 27 times. Let's think about that. 27 times in 3 years. It almost feels like that's practically living in the hospital. Her mom, Rosamund, did everything she could. She was her advocate, fighting for her right treatment, the right care. But asthma is a beast. And it's even worse when the air quality is working against you. Every attack was brutal. And despite her mom's efforts, she passed away after a massive asthma attack. But the story doesn't end there. Ella's mom didn't just grieve, she sought answers. And in 2020, 7 years after Ella's death, something unprecedented happened. The UK held a second inquest into her death and concluded that air pollution was a direct cause of Ella's death. Now, let me repeat that. Air pollution was a direct cause. This was the first time in the UK that air pollution had ever been listed as the cause of death. Ever. Now, I want you to think about the weight of that for a moment. Air, the thing that we all breathe, that surrounds us, that we can't live without, was responsible for ending a life. But Ella's story is more than just a tragedy. It's a wake-up call, a call to action, because the truth is, air pollution doesn't just affect one child in one city. It's affecting millions of people disproportionately people of color, low income communities, and children like Ella, who don't get a choice about where they live. Ella lived in the highly polluted area, and the air quality was way over the World Health Organization's guidelines. And you might be thinking, well, okay, that's London. But what does that have to do with us? But let me break it down for you. Here in the US, there are cities where air pollution is a silent killer too. Places like Los Angeles, New York, Houston. But it's not just the big cities. Rural communities get it too. Near industrial plants, black and brown communities living near highways, these places are also affected. Let me take you back to that 2022 episode with Marisol. We talked about a lot. We talked about how climate change isn't just this abstract idea or something that's happening years down the line. It's happening now. And one of the clearest ways we see it is through air pollution. Warmer temperatures, wildfires, industrial emissions, all these things are making the air more toxic, and the people suffering the most, they're not the ones contributing the most to climate change, are they? No. The kids in low income neighborhoods, the elderly, and people with chronic conditions just like Ella. And that's why this story matters. Because Ella's death wasn't inevitable, it was preventable. The same way that air pollution levels in her neighborhood could have been lowered if action had been taken sooner. And I'm not talking about just any action. I'm talking about the right action. Policies that enforce clean air standards, urban planning that prioritizes green spaces, holding industries accountable for their emissions, and yes, making sure that climate change doesn't push us further into a health crisis. Ella's mother, said after the inquest, "We now have the justice for her that she deserves." It took 7 years, but that justice should have come from preventative measures, not from the court ruling after her death. Because, let's be honest, no mother should have to bury her child because of the air they breathe. Now let's talk solutions. What can we do to prevent another story like Ella's? First, we need to address the air pollution at a systemic level. That means supporting environmental policies that actually work. Policies that don't just focus on cutting emissions in wealthy areas, but prioritize the most vulnerable. You see, air pollution is a form of inequality. The people who contribute the least to it are the ones who suffer the most from its effects. If we don't start treating this as a public health crisis, we're going to continue seeing more cases like Ella's. And it won't just be asthma, it's going to be cardiovascular disease, stroke, even mental health issues linked to pollution. Another thing we can do, advocate. Advocate like Rosamund did for her daughter. Be that voice that says, hey, this isn't okay. Speak up when you see injustice, whether it's the placement of a highway in a low income neighborhood, or lack of green spaces in urban areas, because your voice matters. So does your action. Look, I know this sounds a little bit overwhelming, but we've got to start somewhere, right? So I challenge you today, check out the air quality in your area. There are apps you can download that tell you the pollution levels where you live, and if they're not where they should be, start asking why. Get involved with local organizations fighting for cleaner air. If you have the power to vote, vote for leaders who take climate change and public health seriously, because it should be taken seriously. I'll leave you with this. Ella's story is tragic, yes, but it's also a story of resilience, a story of a mother who refused to let her daughter's death be in vain. And because of her fight, Ella's name will forever be tied to the movement for clean air. Her story has already changed the conversation around air pollution in the UK. It's up to us to carry that conversation forward where we are. All right. That's it for today's episode. Make sure you check out that 2022 episode with Marisol about the health impacts of climate change. It really sets the stage for everything that I talked about today. That link will be in the description. All right, as always, stay informed and stay healthy. This is Corey Dion Lewis. I'll let you next time. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Healthy Project podcast. I hope you found today's conversation insightful and inspiring. Remember, health is more than just access to care. It's about equity, understanding, and community. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who could benefit from this conversation. For more information and resources, visit us at www.healthyproject.co. If you're interested in sponsoring an episode or partnering on a series, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me at Corey@healthyprojectmedia.com. Together, we can build healthier and more equitable communities. Until next time, take care, stay healthy.